Hi, I'm Felicia.
And I'm Giancarlo, and this is our review of Serenissima.
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 If you're Italian, you can say it with that accent.
Serenissima.
Brava. Very
like,
nice.
is it like a serenade? No?
Yes.
Is it?
It's a
Are
serenade
they in
about boats battling each other.
Oh, this is okay. We saw a documentary on this. Yes, we did.
About 15th century merchants?
Yes, Luca and I, believe it or not, a couple of weeks ago saw a documentary about these two boats, and one of the boats, whose boat was it?
The galley, yeah.
What was his name, the dude? Anyways, yeah, there was two boats, and there was
Kurt Russell.
No.
What?
Kurt Russell. Yes, because it was a movie. There was a movie made about it. Yeah, you're right. There's a movie made about
Master
it.
and Commander?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the boats is like insanely stronger than the other boat, and it's because of the wood, the way the wood's made, and they did tests, and it was
Oh,
crazy.
you were talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You're telling me how that documentary has nothing to do with this game!
Exactly.
In Serenissima, players take on the role of merchants from the Mediterranean region in the 15th century. In the box you'll find a board game of the Mediterranean region, 54 coins representing ducats of value 1, 5, 10, and 50, 15 plastic galleys, 70 cubes representing goods, wood, stone, marble, wine, gold, and spice, 120 sailor tokens, 30 for each player, 24 galley cubes, 6 for each player, 1 white token, 1 black token, 19 port cards, 5 doge cards, 4 game help cards, 4 closed port cards, 5 basilica tokens, 5 fort tokens, 5 dice with skull and crossbones on 3 sides, and a rulebook. At the end of 3 scoring rounds, be the merchant with the most ducats and you win.
Here's how to set up. For the purpose of this review, we'll show you the 4-player setup. Place the white token at the beginning of the 4-player turn track. Place the black token on the doge space on the wheel. Place all the galley cubes near the wheel. Shuffle the 5 doge cards and place them face down on the left-hand side of the Venetian lion. Give each player 30 sailor tokens of their chosen color, as well as 5 ducats. Randomly determine who the first player is. Now, going clockwise, from player 1, each player will choose a starting port from the list in the rulebook. Take the corresponding port card and place 3 sailor tokens on it. Then that player chooses a galley, places 3 sailor tokens in it, and putting it in the water space of their chosen port. And he places his colored galley cube on the corresponding number space on the wheel. When the last player has chosen their galley, another turn of choosing a galley is repeated, but this time going counterclockwise, starting from the last player. Again, each galley is placed in the water space of their starting port along with 3 sailors. You're now ready to play.
To begin, move the black token on the wheel next to the available galley cube. This indicates that it is the turn of that galley. Here, the controlling player has 2 available choices of play: action or investment. The action option has 3 steps that may be played or not, but they must always be done in this order: loading, movement, and finally, sail or battle. The loading step is where the active galley can load goods or sailors from the port the galley is at, or from another galley that player controls. If the player is at a port he controls, he can load up sailors from his port or another galley freely. For goods, he'd load up the first good free that the port produces, and would have to spend 1 additional ducat for each subsequent goods he wants to load up. As for goods, he can load up the good produced at that port for 1 ducat each. If the active galley is in a port belonging to another player, they can still only transfer sailors from 1 galley to another they control on that space, or they can load up good produced by that port, giving the player who controls the port 1 ducat for each goods loaded up. Galleys can only hold up to 5 spaces in combination of goods and or sailors. The movement step is where the active galley can move to their destination. The space any galley can move is equal to the number of sailors on that galley. However, should they enter a space with a galley or more that contains more sailors than their galley, the player who has the more sailors can declare a blockade. When a blockade happens, the active player can no longer move or sell, which we'll explain later on, and must either end his turn or battle. A blockade, however, cannot involve a galley's starting space. So, should a galley start in a space with another galley that has more sailors than he can still load and move. The last step is sail or battle. When a galley ends their turn in a port space, they can choose to sell their goods, provided that port doesn't produce or already have that good in their storage. If the port belongs to the active player, they get no ducats. If the port is neutral or belongs to another player, the player gets a number of ducats equal to the lowest number space available on the port, and they place their good token on it. Also, should a player be selling spice to a port, they get an additional 2 ducats because spice is rare. If they sell wine to a port, they should flip that port card to the wine side. Should the players not decide to sell, he can battle.
There are 2 types of battle: naval battle between galleys and port battles from galleys to ports. In both cases, the attack value of your galley is equal to your sailors on board minus the number of spaces they traveled, if any. From every skull rolled, the players remove 1 sailor from their galley. Should they choose to attack again, they roll the number of dice equal to how many sailors they have left. This can go on until 1 ship is sunk, when no sailors are on it, or when the attacker decides to stop attacking. If 1 ship is sunk, the surviving galley can steal the good of the sinking ship, should they have space on theirs. Port battles are similar except for 2 things. First, the attacker must battle any galleys there that belong to the port's defending player. And should there be a fort token on that port, before any combat dice is rolled, the player who controls the port immediately rolls 2 combat dice and kills off that number of soldiers from the attacker, equal to the number of skull and crossbones rolled. Then the attacker again can decide to continue or stop. If they succeed in wiping out all the sailors at the port, they can unload a sailor and take over the port. The previous owner gives the player his card, and any basilica or fort token remain at that port. If the port is neutral, no dice are necessary, just unload 1 or more of your sailors. Grab the card and the port is yours.
That was all part of the action option on a player's turn. The other option is investment. Here the active player, instead of using the active galley, can recruit sailors, buy a galley, build a fort, or build a basilica. Each recruited sailor costs 1 ducat and can be placed on the ports he owns, respecting the limits, which is equal to the number of storage spaces on each port. Or he can place them in galleys that are docked at their port. A player can also buy 1 galley per investment phase. The cost is equal to the number of galleys he already owns, plus 1 to put a sailor in it. And the player can also decide to build the fort and or basilica. To build a fort, the port in which it is being built must either produce and or have in storage both wood and stone goods. If so, the player can build a fort for 2 ducats. He then places a fort token on the said port. For basilica, the port must produce and or have in its warehouse both marble and gold. Again, if it does, the player can build a basilica there by placing the token there and paying 2 ducats. What are basilicas for? That brings us to the next part, scoring.
When an active player ends their turn, the black token moves to the next spot on the wheel. Eventually, the black token will land on the doggy space. Here, a player reveals the top card from the doggy deck and places it face up on the next space, applying its effects. The 5 cards are a wine card, 2 1-hourglass cards, 1 2-hourglass card, and 1 2-hourglass card with the shuffle symbol on it. The hourglass represents how many spaces the white token moves on the track. The shuffle symbol means that after the white token has moved, the cards from the discard and deck are reshuffled, and the wine card doesn't make the white token move. But everybody who controls a wine-producing port, or one that contains wine, gets 3 ducat per such ports. When the white token reaches a yellow square in a 4-player game, scoring begins. Each port gives the controlling player a number of ducats depending on how filled their warehouse is. And each basilica grants 5 ducats to the player controlling that port. At the end of the 3rd scoring round, the player with the most ducats wins.
Serenissima provided us with such great short-term tactics and long planning strategy that we can't wait to play it some more. Everything you do in this game is so measured that you don't want to squander any missed opportunities. Even when it's not your turn, you're closely paying attention to what the other players are doing, and their actions can immediately change the action you had just planned. When it's your turn, do you bolster your defenses, or do you try and conquer that port to score extra ducats, knowing the next space on the turn track will be a scoring phase? What's fun is that there's even an option of playing with your gold hidden from other players. The game also forces you to trade with other player ports if you want some ducats, so it's not all cutthroat along the way. But we quickly realize that battle is inevitable. And when you want to buy other galleys to get more actions and they're all on the board, well, the only way is to start sinking ships and putting them out of the board so you can purchase them again. Even choosing ships at the beginning of the game has so much impact. Do you want 2 ships with sequence numbers so you can activate twice, or spread them out and see what other players do? Yes, there is a little luck depending on what results you roll on the dice and what cards come up from the dodge deck, but it's so minimal that the core of it is deeply rooted in strategy. We really love this game, from game mechanics to production quality. The board is nice and sturdy with a 15th century map feel to it. Cards are good quality, the tokens, dice as well, though a couple more would have been useful. And the rulebook is spot on, with hardly any unanswered questions and great examples. We did find it strange though as to why they wouldn't put other rulebooks printed in this box with other languages, but that's just us nitpicking. If you like Euro-style games and strategy, we really recommend Serenissima. We're giving it 8.5 cannonballs out of 10.